Welcome to Trade Ideas. I am Brian Price, and joining me today is Gabriella Heffesse, Chief Operating Officer at ACG Analytics. Now, Gabby, let's pull up a chart of Banco Popular. In May, you suggested buying Banco Popular, the Puerto Rican bank, at $47 with a target of $56. That stock has reached that level, so how are you looking at it today?
Yeah, so we talked about this in March when it was around 42 and 43, and then I came back in May and it had gone up to 47. And the main thing I saw was a lot of money coming in onto the island. Very small island, 3.5 million people, getting $70 to $100 billion, which is equivalent to their GDP. So that kind of stimulus, when you only have 3 major banking institutions, will flow into the equities, both on the deposit level and on the loan financing level. So it was just kind of the easy, well, not easy, but the assumption that that much money flowing into a spot and a bank being such a central player with the disaster relief money would be a positive story for that equity.
So before we look ahead to where you anticipate the shares going, I want to drill down a little bit in terms of that relief money.
Sure.
In terms of what the anticipation was and where it's at right now. Is the island getting what it needs, and is it being distributed properly?
So it takes time, and the fascinating thing about this is around less than 10% of the disaster relief money has gone to the island at this point. It's been over a year. It's not that, I mean, if you go onto the island, I'm actually have a flight in 3 hours
Thank
going
you for
down.
being here, by the way. Just making a quick stop here on your way to the airport.
Yeah, it'll be my 4th time this year, and really I think by early last year, at least in San Juan, you don't see the damage, but it was a very big story and they were able to get a lot of federal money. So as you know, Puerto Rico is in bankruptcy. They're restructuring their debt. So we actually have this really nice fiscal plan that the financial board puts forward that tells us how much insurance is expected, how much disaster relief is expected, and kind of outlines all of it for us. So of the around $74 billion that's estimated that they're going to get, they've gotten 7. But that's not a bad thing. That means that this island that had a stagnating economy for a long time is now going to have stimulus over the next 10 years. And if you look at New Orleans with Katrina, you saw that the prolonged stimulus actually helped the economy, and FEMA was there for a really long time. I think they still have some offices there.
So as much as it's a story of relief, is it also a story of debt? Talk to me a little bit more about the bonds, what we've seen, and what's going forward.
Sure. So there's finally been some progress. They've made a few deals, the board, with a couple of the bondholders. We have one big tranche left, the GOs, which we expect to see something this coming year. And settling that also removes a level of uncertainty from the island. The reason I was talking about Banco Popular instead of the bonds originally is because the bonds are a little bit more complicated, they're a little bit more political, and there's a lot more at play. I do think that's also a positive story, and that it's the same argument. The economy's doing well. The government has a lot of cash. They keep surpassing their revenue expectations. So every time we just keep getting upward surprises on the island, which is great.
What about tax incentives? How does that factor into your thesis?
So tax incentives are a huge part of the Puerto Rican story. They have manufacturers and pharmaceuticals that are incentivized through controlled foreign corporations, but also in the tax reform bill that was passed last year, they got a very special provision, which was the entire island, 95% of it is considered an opportunity zone. So opportunity zones incentivize people with capital gains to defer their taxes so they don't have to pay it, and then whatever appreciation they get from their investment, they also don't have to pay taxes on them. So it's actually 3 benefits to it. A, you defer your gains. B, the basis of your gain can go down up to 15%. And C, you don't pay capital gains on that. So with the entire island being an opportunity zone, I expect to see a lot more investment, but also when you have more investment, you have more deposits, you have more jobs, and you need more financing. So that all flows back to the bank. So although it's gone up 20–25% since we started talking about it, there's so much more benefit that it's going to get over the next few years that I think it's still a good buy.
So we have a story of taxes, we have a story of relief, and we have a story of debt. What are some of the other factors at play that's driving this bullish thesis?
So if you listen to their last earnings call, you just see the economy doing well. So this summer, transactions were up 18% from last year. Car originations and car sales are up over 20% since last year. And although the mortgage origination was down in the first 6 months of this year, they're now stabilized and growing. So I think that'll only pick up. And they're actually getting contractors from outside, so you're getting more people in. You're getting the opportunity for new infrastructure to help tourism. There's a lot at play. They're getting kind of a bit of a blank slate to try to rebuild and make it better. And I think that'll all, when you only have 3 banks on the island, and Banco Popular has, I think, over 50% of the banking transactions on the island, it's just clearly they're going to get a huge benefit from it.
When we talk about a story of rebuilding, and we know the disaster that Puerto Rico went through, but you're talking about so much upside there for a variety of reasons. In essence, is Puerto Rico writing the playbook for how one can recover after a terrible natural disaster?
I actually don't think they are. I think that it's a complicated place politically, and they could, on the political side, be using it better to do some structural changes for their long-term growth. I think in the short term and the medium term, they're doing great, but anyone who gets $70 billion would probably do really well. I would like the legislator to pass some of the reforms that have been recommended to them. It doesn't look like they want to. So no.
Okay.
It's not the playbook, but it is a nice story.
Well, with that nice story in mind, you touched on remaining bullish when it comes to Banco Popular. Where do you see it going? Do you have any specific levels in mind, and what would be your time frame as it relates?
I think you'll just keep seeing it go up over the next 2–3 years. You might see a little bit of a dip when they settle all the bonds, because once they start paying again, the government actually banks with Banco Popular, so they have this huge pool of money, which is all the cash the government has. So once they start paying debt again, you're going to see a big chunk of their deposits go away. But other than that, I think over the next 2–3 years, you're just going to see it go up. If it got up to 65, I wouldn't be surprised.
65 within the next 2–3 years is what you're anticipating.
Yeah,
well,
it's a big call, but we'll see how it goes.
It's a triple down. You've come on twice before and given us your case, and it's worked out pretty nicely.
Yeah, why change what works?
Well, Gabby, thank you so much for joining us, making a quick stop at Real Vision on the way to the airport on the way to Puerto Rico. So Gabby is still bullish on Banco Popular. She suggests buying ticker symbol BPOP at current levels with a target price of 65 over the next 2–3 years. That's Gabriella Heffesse of ACG Analytics, and I am Brian Price for Real Vision's Trade Ideas. Thanks so much for watching.